The next stage of the video is what I want to go ahead and show you how to do is, well, how do we start to work with these layers, right? So the original, or what we're aiming at for that cover graphic, right? You can start to see that it's not just kind of those same line work that we imported into this. We actually brought some and manipulated each one of these layers to create kind of the effect that we have here on the screen. And so in order to do that, there's a couple things that we have to do. One is that Photoshop works off of, manipulating the pixels that are here in the drawing. And so let me just go ahead and zoom in on the hydrology layer real quick, right? You can see that, oops, as I hit 100%, right? So you can see that here's all the line work. But it actually, way we brought it in, oops, here on the hydrology layer, we brought it in is lots of white space surrounding all of this blue line work, right? So the easiest thing to do is to use a tool called the magic wand. Now, the magic wand hides usually. It usually looks like this when you first open Photoshop, but it hides. It's 1, 2, 3. It's the fourth tool down. It's hiding underneath it. It's one of the most powerful tools that we actually have. Because what it allows me to do is that for any layer, and again, I have to click on the hydrology layer. For any layer, I can create a selection of any single pixel color. All right, so if I want white pixels, I can come out here and click on those there. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to play with. One is that, do you want every single white pixel in the whole drawing? Which I turn off the contiguous if that's what I want. Or do we just want the white pixels over in this area, right? And so anything that's connected to this, and you see how it doesn't select everything then. There's obviously some kind of place in here where the blue is completely surrounding it. Well, in this case, we actually do. But it's the blue pixels that we want. And so I'm going to go ahead and select on the blue pixels. And the other thing you have to do is that the tolerance allows it to go ahead and reach out and grab all of the pixels. And so moving it up to tolerance 32, suddenly you see it's selected out even the tiny little shreds. If I zoom in, it's got most of those. If I really want to crank that up, I can go up to a much bigger number. And it should, continue to kind of pick off all of these. But again, we don't need every single dot to come forward. What we do need is we need a clean hydrology layer. And so once I've made that selection, I can create a new layer. And I can go ahead and grab a blue color of my own and go to Paint Bucket, which again, Paint Bucket usually hides underneath the gradient tool. So it's down here at this end of the list. But once I have that new layer, I can go ahead and just dump that in. And I can turn that off, and you'll see then that gets rid of all this exterior, it's the old frame coming off of the GIS drawing, all right? So now that's gone. Now, even better than that, now what I'm able to do is I can go ahead and double click on this layer, and if I don't like the color that I picked, I can come into the color, and now I can go ahead and pick whatever color blue that I want to represent that. And so you can see that now I've got, I can change that up. I like the light blue for right now. We'll see if I need to make some additions or corrections here as I move through the drawing. But again, just as a base layer. Now, same thing kind of implies here. So if I go ahead and bring up the impaired layer, I'm going to show you a different way to approach the same problem. What if I just want to work with this layer? I don't want to create another layer to muddy up the drawing. Well, I've got this black line that's part of this drawing here, right? It's part of the frame. If I go ahead and drag that impaired layer down, you can see, that the frame up here is still in existence. It doesn't really matter as long as I get rid of the part that I don't want. Well, I can see that black line, so if I draw a marquee tool around it and hit the delete key, it's gone. Pretty helpful stuff. Now, the other piece of this is that, what if I go ahead and again, contiguous is off, use the magic wand, and I select all the white pixels, and then I hit the delete key. Look, it just dropped in, and now I've got all of my impaired waterways showing up right on the map where I want them. Now, even better than that, we can go ahead and take that to the next level, and I can come in and start to play with some of the settings. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. So bevel, what does that do? Well, it allows it to pop out. I showed color overlay a minute ago. Well, what if I want that nice orange color that I used? It's one of these oranges, I'm sure, that I use in the final graphic, right? If you really want the impaired waterways to pop out, there you go. There's the impaired waterways of Wisconsin. Again, how I'm getting those effects is if I double click on them. Now, if we really want them to pop out, we can go in and we can start to play around with some other settings. But you'll notice I hit drop shadow and you get this big shadow down the edge. That's because there's some pixels that are hanging out from that original frame. So what I can do to get rid of any of that excess that's out there is if I hit the crop tool and then I just double click, all of that extra that was there on that layer, as I drag it around, you can see is now gone. Right? And so I have a complete layer that I can work with. I'm going to go ahead and leave off here and let you go ahead and try out the outstanding layer and see if you can get that laid in on top of your drawing.